sometimes I wonder if the value we create is the data or actually the product being delivered, which is the marketing space, and how to use data to find customers and reach out with your message to different clients and really appeal to clients. And I mean, it's technology will make you worse faster if it's the wrong process, right? I don't know that it's been challenges with data as much as it's been challenges with aligning the systems.
How do you think, would AI replace the supply chain workers? Maybe not in the near future, but let's say 5 or 10 years later.
For dispatching and scale and doing optimization tasks and things like that. I really go back to process. And if you have core processes that you can document and explain, you're really well positioned for technology, no matter what it is, but AI being part of it.
Hi everyone, this is Yurii from Dataforest, and that means that today's, guys, we're gonna record another episode of our podcast, Empower the Data, where the business begins with data and AI leads the way. And today we have, I wouldn't say great, but exceptional guest from that field that we didn't discuss with you folks yet. We have a Brian Baskin. Yay! Give a big round of applause for our guest.
Thanks, Yurii.
Hi, Brian.
Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I'm really glad that you found the time in your very tough schedule. I know that you assistant works hard to find that spot, and I really appreciate that he made it. And I'm glad to see you here. So for those who doesn't know, Brian Baskin is a pretty experienced specialist who works in supply chain field. And not only, Brian has 30 years of, storytelling, story doing, and story bringing experience in this area. And today I hope he's gonna share his expertise with us a little bit. So Brian, I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your company, but let's start from you. As I already said, you had 30 years of experience. That's more than 3 decades in global supply chain and logistics. How did you get into this field, and what makes you to stay there for so long?
Yeah, that's now that you're taking me down a walk past memory lane, I it's kind of scary to think about 30 years, but it's an interesting field. I actually had no intentions of going into it in college. I was a technical theater major and history major who wanted to be an astronaut at some point, and ended up, not becoming an astronaut, but got into technical theater, and there was a lot of overlap between the production qualities of a theatrical production and logistics. So. From an internship I had back in college, it led to a first job in customs brokerage, and then went from customs brokerage into trade fairs and exhibitions, and then global freight forwarding, and then global account management, on the way through to starting a couple different companies and a couple different startups, and then really kind of delving into the contract logistics space in the last 15 years or so. So been an interesting ride, loved every minute of it, met some great people along the way, worked for some great companies, and had a lot of great customers. So very fortunate to be in the position today with ShipALot.
So I just want to say that Brian is a CEO and founder of the company that named ShipALot. And as I know, you guys operate in very competitive fulfillment space. What makes you guys different, and what helps you to stay on top of the rest of the competitors?
Yeah, I'm the CEO. I'm not the founder. Just to correct, I want to be clear about that. But joined the company about a year ago, and coming over here, the excitement for me was after spending 30 years in the multinational space with large companies, coming to take all those lessons learned over 30 years of kind of mistakes made, trial and error, and being able to bring that into building a team here to kind of take the best of both worlds, from that global multinational experience down to the small founder-led brand experience, and really kind of help us drive differentiation and what kind of from the outside looks like a sea of sameness. I mean, if you were to go through, my biggest challenge in my role today is growth, and looking at growth in this industry, we kind of joke it's a sea of sameness. There's every 3PL you're going to talk to is going to get on. They're all going to have great people. We're all going to have great systems. We're all going to, have great customer service, Slack channels. There's all these checklists, rate shopping. There's all these features that I would say are kind of table stakes to be a 3PL today. And so it really is, how do you differentiate, and what differentiates, and that is a challenge, especially pre-sale. It's hard to have someone drink the coffee, so to speak, if they're not interested in coffee, I guess. So that's kind of where we're trying to find that angle of, after you've signed on the dotted line and you've incurred the cost of change, you get to experience the difference. But convincing you there is a difference before is a little bit tricky. So trying to find every angle possible on that.
Yeah. And I know that you guys deliver 99.9% accuracy of order. And for me, that sounds like something I wouldn't even say impossible, but really, really, really hard achievable. How did you reach that point?
Yeah, quality is one of the key metrics as a 3PL. And, if you looked and talked to clients why they left their past 3PL or what the issue is, you may hear price come up sometimes, but really it's more like quality in terms of the shipment was getting to my customer with the wrong item or didn't have the item at all. Things like that, where you miss picks, happen in warehousing, different things like that. And we really work hard with our clients to help them help us be in the best possible position to achieve the best outcome. Things like UPC barcoding on the products so that we can use our software to scan, help improve our accuracy rates, customer feedback, and really root causing down to what the issue was, what created it. Was it an inventory issue? Was it a bad put away? There's all different kinds of root causes we can get into on that. But really being able to go into our data with the operating system we use and recreate what happened in a sense, to really clarify. And I think the other big part is standing behind what we do. We really try to stand behind what we do, and there have times we've made mistakes like everyone, and we stand behind that as a company. So I think that really helps drive our value proposition.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And another question, if we already start talking about the data and metrics, I know that data kind of sit in the center of the modern logistic. And what about your company? Which role data plays nowadays in your processes?
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if the value we create is the data or actually the product being delivered. It's kind of funny because it feels like at times to our client, it's the data we provide, not even the actual service we're doing back, I guess. And that's really, I think, what's evolved over 30 years in this business. I remember starting out, it wasn't a very academic environment in logistics. It was very much more of I guess if you would say, a blue collar trucking mentality in places. And then, that slowly evolved to where universities started having supply chain programs. And then the concept of using data to make better decisions started coming in and informing things. And now data is everywhere. I mean, as you know, Yurii, it's with AI and everything that come along. I mean, it's the thing. There was one company I worked with. We used to say we're a communications company that delivers boxes, and now I'd say we're a big data company that performs activities for our clients now. And it could be everything from, looking at quality of delivery, time of delivery, kind of velocity of parts in the warehouse, slotting, all kinds of different aspects we could use to make either our operations more efficient, our client more efficient, deliver a better product for everybody, and help them make better decisions with their forecasting and all those types of areas that things could tie into. And then there's a whole nother side of it that's gotten very interesting, which is the marketing space, and how to use data to find customers and reach out with your message to different clients and really appeal to the clients. And I mean, I feel like it's just accelerating every day. It's just something's changing.
And may I ask you, how do you manage and unify all those data?
Gracefully, I hope. I think that's the challenge for every company. Um, I think I go to trade shows and walk the floor, and I'm amazed at all the different concepts and ideas out there. And my experience, I guess, would be that there are lots of great ideas, great tools out there. Most people don't spend enough time on defining the problem they're trying to solve or the process, and they see the solution as the application or the app they're buying is going to solve a problem. And I think that I've
They
always
put some
learned,
budget on top of the problem.
right. I mean, it's technology will make you worse faster if it's the wrong
Oh, yeah.
process, right? And so I
I
think,
like this quote.
yeah, it's very relevant in logistics because if you have the wrong SKU in your optimization, it'll just ship the wrong thing faster. So it's kind of that chicken and egg approach and unifying data and how you store data. I think having a kind of a master client management system where you have a way to relate different systems to each other is a key component in data structure. um, I'm not a tech guy by any chance. I would play one on TV, I guess, but it's one of those things where I've learned enough to know that if my data is not organized, it's going to be kind of a disastrous experience. And so, simply the whole keep it simple theory, I'm a big believer in. The simpler the back end can be, the better off you're going to be in presenting the front end. Less conflicts, less overwriting of different concepts, things like that. So I think simplifying the tech stack has been one of the things we're trying to achieve here, and really get our data in an organized place. We've got a great partner for our WMS, and that's a key component where we have a lot of features, and just really the leader of that company really thinks very forwardly in those type of problem sets, which really arms us when we talk about open integrations and things like that to getting to other solutions.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And you've mentioned kind of data disaster that you're scared of having. And if we're talking about this type of problems and the biggest challenges that you had with data, what was that?
I I don't know that it's been challenges with data as much as it's been challenges with aligning the systems. And I think that's the biggest part is an apple in one system could be an orange in another. And now there's so many good connective software or automation around that. I mean, I think everyone with Claude Code now can connect anything to anything. It seems like. We'll see if how scalable, and when I'm waiting
It's
for
not
the.
that good how people imagining that. I can tell you from the perspective of the company that works in IT development. And Plot is great tool, but please don't put so much faith on it.
No, no, yeah, I believe you. I was going to make the point that I'm waiting for the first, ransom attack in cyberspace because you left a back door open in the code that you didn't even know you did. So, all those type of things I think sit in my mind about this view of how simple things are presented versus how complicated they really are. I think that's something I've always struggled with is the complexity of the problem versus the simplicity of the answer. And I think that's really a core challenge when you talk about data and AI and everything. It's just how do you keep things simple when you have 1,500 parameters, you have computers that can handle billions of transactions, and at the same time, it seems like even though it can do billions of transactions, it has a hard time telling me when my next flight is going to depart. So,
Yeah. And talking about the challenges and the ways how you guys manage that, you already mentioned that's kind of a lot of different tools and systems that people are using right now. Uh, do you use some unified platform specifically developed for you, or you just kind of stick to some already made solutions that you kind of combine together and you using them on daily basis? How did you manage this question?
I I I guess I kind of go back to process, and I feel like systems are enabler of processes. And you in our space, you can look at WMS as an example, warehouse management system as an example, and I could show you examples of a poor WMS that is used very well that creates an awesome product, and I could show you a great WMS that's not used at all very well, and you have a horrible output. So I really think it comes down to the people behind the systems and the vision of what they're trying to do and how well they can execute with the tool. Are there times you're in a situation where the tool doesn't do what you want to do? most likely. But there's generally, this is where you start getting into the bespoke workarounds, things like that, that help you kind of get to your destination. And then that's where you start getting into the issue of complexity. And you don't want to be bespoke on every customer, but could you find a workaround that solves a problem and makes your customer happy for 99%, and kind of the 80-20 rule.
99 and 9.
99.9, that's right.
All right. And we've already started talking about the problems and the way how you're fixing them. Let's say you would have ability to build a tool that can make your life easier and your business much more streamlined, profitable, etc. What would it be and why?
Wow. That's a great one. I think I look at the business in a couple ways. There's a sales and marketing side of that, and then there's also an operational efficiency side of that. I think on the sales and marketing side, I would love a tool that could take various proposals. So when my client gets our proposal, right, 90% of the friction I feel in that process is the way we present rates back to a customer. Did they understand it correctly? When they did their own interpretation internally, did they equate things apples to apples? And did they take the time to come back and clarify, or did they just kind of have an opinion and pencil whip? And honestly, the first cut numbers led them to a path where they spent more time investing. I would love a tool that would kind of consume and equalize all the proposals into a set of data so they could see an actual invoice after a period of time. And then, in a process that we would go through, not only giving a rate card, everyone can do a rate card, but actually providing an invoice for a sample of data would be awesome. So the customer could really see, did I evaluate this correctly? Do I understand what I'm being told in the sales process? Is there alignment there? So I think that would be a great sales and marketing tool for a client that I think would be helpful. And from a 3PL side, it would be great because we all have different models. We have different formats. I mean, that was the old thing in global freight forwarding, was you do bids, and it was never the problem of knowing what your price was. It was the problem in expressing your price in the customer's template, and everyone had a different template. So how do you kind of adapt that? On the operational efficiency side, I don't think it's like in my world right now. I'm really excited about some of the robotics that are going on and some of the AI-led robotic efforts that are out there. It's still very early. I'm sure there are people out there deploying, but I'm excited by the fact that you have companies that, can train robotic models, with humans and then turn that over into, autonomous operations, if you will, and the ability to run those. And we're looking heavily into some of that and very excited about some upcoming trials we're going to be doing on that. But ultimately, I feel like that's going to be the next wave, next generation. That's the next kind of, I guess, what would you call it? Next step in evolution for a warehouse is how do we really attack the labor quality, labor efficiency, and labor planning piece of the business. And I think there's an answer in robotics for that.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty good that you touched this topic, because I had a question, because you had experience to work with the companies that growth and scaled from 95 millions to 3 billions. And which role the infrastructure played in that rapid growth?
Wow. So I think the answer to that lies somewhere in how the company got to the size it was. I was in a couple situations where we did a lot of that organically, and you had a lot better control over your stack. And then there were some other ones where we're through acquisition, where really the core mission, it felt like on a daily basis, was growth-focused companies battling disparate tech stacks internally to deliver a quality product. And the multinational space, I think, is a cautionary tale of a lot of acquisition type focuses. And I think you can look at them and say that the deal propositions in a lot of those companies were never realized because they didn't have clear tech stack visions, and they never were able to get to the operational efficiency levels they wanted to. And it's hard. It's incredibly hard when you're talking with size companies, and merging the data and organizing and structuring the data like we were talking earlier. Um, and it's hard in any diligence process to truly flush that out to the level you would probably need to. So I remember back in the early days, or in the early days of my career, companies like Cisco had a very good acquisition model where they would go in and just had a playbook, and they would run the playbook. And if the deal didn't fit the playbook, they wouldn't do it. And so they had a lot of success. I remember in the early days, kind of really acquiring companies, but culturalizing them quickly. Um, and I think the tech stack has a lot to do with enhancing the culture. So, if you have the common tech stack, people are interacting with the same tool sets. It helps drive your new culture, combined culture together in a better way.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. Look, the reason why I'm asking this question, because when I was at the conference in Utah, that was a lot of kind of successful businessmen that was a representative from the different huge companies. And when they were talking, that was after the COVID hit it, like about a couple years after. And what they were talking about, that like how the great people managed to go through this rough time and increase their revenue and all those things, but none of them said anything about the technology. And for me, it was kind of surprising because I mean that was shut down. Everything was locked, and basically technology played the crucial role at the time. And no one wants to kind of say, hey guys, yeah, we got that successful. I'm not talking about, I'm not trying to underestimate the effort that people put into that process, but without the proper tools, I mean, they wouldn't be able to do that. Even those small things like video conferences like we're having right now, without that, there was no communication. You cannot build a business without the communication. And I think when the people saying that that's all about the people, they're not lying, but they underestimate the impact that technology does.
I mean, I think of all the deals that I'm personally aware of, and ones that I've had friends involved in, things like that. And it seems to me most of the deal propositions that are done when they talk about M&A, they grossly underestimate the cost of the tech conversion, let's call it, and just the change management process of the two organizations. It's not just the psychology of coming together, but it's the to your point. It's if I have a Google shop and a Microsoft shop, just getting those two to talk together, and people used to the functions in Google Calendar versus the functions in Microsoft Exchange, or Outlook. They're similar, but they're not, right? I mean, you're going to get the error one way or the other. You're going to miss the alert, whatever the case is. A personal victim of that, I guess. But I do think that tech is generally the easiest place to cut cost, but I think it's one of those things where you can reduce budgets and you can, you know, delay projects and things. But I think that in this world of I want to see it results now and immediately. Yeah, I can cut my way to greatness in the short term on tech, but I'm sacrificing the long term stability or growth in the company. And I think I see that happening a lot. And I think you have to make smart investments. Like everyone I've ever known in tech says tech is a destination, it's a journey, not a destination.
It's
So
a tool.
it's a tool, and you know it's just like I guess if I was a painter, I'd have to have my paint sprayer, and I'd probably want to upgrade that every so often, have the newest paint sprayer that came out. So that's kind of how I look at it. I do think though it's also a candy shop, and you can go in the candy shop and be wowed by all the new cool candy that's coming out or the new toys if you're in a toy store. Um, I think you have to have a vision of what your destination is at some point and what your journey needs to be to a destination. So I'm kind of in a hybrid model of that whole IT as a journey. I think the overall process is constantly iterative, but I think there has to be destinations along the way and milestones that you're checking into and saying, "Hey, I want to do this in my business. I need to get to this point. So what does that look like?" And then, more importantly, I kind of want to get to this far point. And so, how do all these interim steps build to that bigger picture? And the other problem you fight is, I could tell you 6 months ago I would not have been as bullish on robotics as I am today based on just the change in AI in 6 months. I mean, and it's one of those things where it just feels like the wheel is turning faster and faster and faster. And generally, I look at my lifetime and I think of the big key changes that happened. And I mentioned at the start I wanted to be an astronaut, and I still to this day, I'm fascinated by the fact that my we put a person on the moon with a computer system that was in a basement. And this computer right here, my phone, is probably umpteen thousand times more powerful than what we had at that time to put someone on the moon.
Oh yeah.
So, when I think of Apple launching the whole iPod, iPhone, I feel like that was a step change moment in my life. The ecosystems that evolved, the companies that sprouted out around that, all the supply chains that had to be developed, how that played into the automotive industry and all these other, connected industries with CarPlay and all the different things that came around those attachments. And I really feel AI is the next kind of change. And, I'm still someone, when I started in this business, I had to carry a pager. I don't even know that people know what a pager is anymore. My kids
I
certainly
do.
don't. And it used to be, we used to have a thing called pay phones. And, my kids wouldn't even know what a payphone is today. So, if it's not being delivered to their door or something, it's, on Postmates or whatever, it's not cool. So, yeah, it's just, those are the kind of things I look at. And AI, I feel like, is the next piece that, when used responsibly, is so powerful, but also has a lot of, challenges we still don't even understand yet.
That's true. And talking about AI, how do you see the AI impact like companies like yours and your company specifically? What do you think that's going to bring to ShipALot?
Well, I I feel like there's obviously all the mainstream AI, offerings, getting up to speed. I'm personally enrolled in a class right now on AI because I feel like it's that important to really understand how it works. And it's been fascinating just to learn, you know, I challenged some of my professors in the class and I said, hey, you are giving me a case study here to pretend AI is a medical doctor and give it context and train the model in a medical setting. But I'm standing in the airport waiting for my next flight, asking AI, "Hey, what's the next flight to leave out of the gate that I'm standing in?" And it's a good test. If you ever haven't tried that, try it when you're flying next time because AI it never seems to get that answer right. And I'm sitting here going, but on the other hand, you want me to ask it if I don't know, have what my ailment is with these symptoms. And, so I think that going into the class, I really struggle with that question. Like, how can I, and this is such an obvious, there's so many different apps and websites available with airline schedules and things like that, and what gate it's going to depart out of. And I'm talking like, couldn't even get the flight right. Like give it all the prompting you want about airline type, airline, all that, and it still struggled with that kind of. So those are kind of use cases where I say, okay, it's great because the concept of in robotics, let's say training it to do a packing process or training it to do another process, that's very self-contained. It's controllable. You can repeat it, but giving it this open ability to say, hey, make decisions for me unguarded, I'm not there yet. I'm still in that cautious phase.
I mean, AI also is not there yet, but kind of we're going to that point. I don't know, are we gonna there end up soon, or we'll never get end up there? But talking about the supply chain in general, how do you think would AI replace the supply chain workers? Maybe not in the near future, but let's say 5 or 10 years later.
I think there's a day in the future where certain functions obviously can be turned over to AI. A lot of that's already happening in certain places. For dispatching and scale and doing optimization tasks and things like that. I really go back to process. And if you have core processes that you can document and explain, you're really well positioned for technology, no matter what it is, but AI being part of it. And, you know, the better defined process I have, the faster I can train an LLM model or an AI model to perform that task. So I think the key is you're never going to turn the whole thing over. I don't see that day, at least in the next 5 years, where you're just going to say, hey, go do this completely. But I do think you could take pieces of it, and there's this kind of symbiotic relationship between parts of the process becoming automated with other parts still having manual oversight, human intervention, whatever the case may be, where you actually have to use true logic in deciding. But I say that, and I took a ride in an Uber the other day, and they're now autonomous cars in Uber, not the Waymo, but an actual driver, but telling me that he was getting better insurance rates because he lets the car drive all the time. So, there's obviously actuarial science behind that. So, in data science behind that. So, I guess they've determined that cars are safer drivers than humans. So, maybe my kids will worry one day that the stuff we worry about today isn't important, and the variance there will be okay.
I don't know. 2029 is coming. That wasn't Terminator. Let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. We might get there. We might get there.
Yeah. And on this point, I want to ask you probably the last question from my side. If you would say something to our listeners, what would it be? What would you recommend them, suggest them, or probably ask them?
One of my favorite quotes of all time was, those that can see the invisible can do the impossible. And as we go into tech, I feel like that quote really resonates with me right now. And I think that that vision of what the future could look like is really key to anchor where we're going on that iterative roadmap I was talking about. And I think that my advice to anyone in these space right now is, don't be intimidated by this at all. I mean, I probably am the least likely to pick up a computer and code something, but I started the other night, and in a half hour, I was able to build a dashboard and taking data files and translating it. And there's so many tools out there now that make it so easy for folks like me, who didn't grow up in this space. And I think that's so key. And I think the other thing for as a parent for my kids out there, I would say really get involved in the tech space and really learn the apps. They're going to shape your life more than you ever know, and be a part of that change, not follow it.
No. Thank you so much. First of all, it was a great quote.
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree with you on everything that you said. And I think we're running out of time. So, Brian, I want to say thank you one more time for finding the time for our podcast, to answering my sometimes silly questions. But I'm really curious to hear the perspective and point of view of people like you, who knows what they do, who work for 30 years in this field, and to hear their thoughts, their vision, and kind of their predictions for the future. So thank you so much.
Hey, really appreciate the time, and it's been great talking to you and Dataforest on everything that's going on. So really appreciate your insight.
Yeah. So for our listeners, I want to say thank you guys that being with us. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And this week we're gonna record another one. So let's wait when we will launch this podcast with Brian and move to another one. Thank you for being with us, Brian. Thank you for your time, and to everybody. Take care, have a great day, and ciao for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks.